that world that you're engaging with and that darkness has a plan for your consciousness, because you're not using it. You're not valuing it enough to own it and to be it. We have the power to redirect and to change anything in any present moment doorway in order to receive data on these higher frequency levels.
In the 20 glyphs of the Mayan calendar, sacred Cholke calendar, they use the word Kame. And Kame means exactly what you just said. It's being dead and alive, to make the transformation so quickly that you're still in form. Well, I have to say that over the years listening to your messages that I've been lucky enough or fortunate enough to be able to listen to, that you send to me from time to time, literally have changed the way I feel. It's changed the way I think in a lot of cases, mostly the way I feel. And that gets me to what I'd really like to start talking about as soon as we can, and that is learning to feel, and how important that internal tool that we have within us is to human beings, especially living in the present day. For us human beings to make it through to the next day is to have hope, and to feel like we have hope, to feel that we have potential future opportunities where we can have joy, experience joy in our lives again, because it's been very few moments in the last 6 months that I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 months, it seems like it's a year, that we can actually have a relaxing, joyful moment when things aren't being talked about around us, or we're not feeling the energy of what's happening around us with events. Let's just say events, because that's kind of what I notice. The key words that a lot of people are using are used to program the person that they're talking to ahead of time about the subject matter that we're going to discuss. And so in that, trying to enter into a new way of us learning to communicate with each other, take out the energized words and use words that are not generic, but are pinpointed to and accurate to the feelings that we're having. Because a lot of times we're talking, find myself talking, and other people who come to talk with me, not talking about our feelings, but talking about events that are happening around us that are causing us to feel sadness, or to feel anger, or to feel fear, probably is the biggest.
We're having a reaction, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that is one of the things I really want to ask you about today, is with all that is happening, it seems as though it's happening in our world, at least if we believe everything that we watch on a news program and accept it as potentially true. It's difficult to maintain a sense of balance. Really, in my opinion, it's difficult for us to maintain a sense of balance in our lives so that we can walk on the planet and go to our group meetings or family meetings and show up and be real, instead of being a reactionary being, instead of a loving, gentle, intelligent being. I don't know. That's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah. So what's the question?
How do we help one another get back into feeling and get away from experiencing energy that's coming from others or media in the form of fear, in the form of problems, in the form of events that are difficult to deal with?
We have to be present and neutral and balanced in order to receive data on these higher frequency levels. And we're all designed to do this. And it's what I have been, mentoring people with in groups before the pandemic arrived, but just now in the, basically one-on-one ways, so that we can really dive into these moments when to know when we're not in the present and we're not feeling. So when we become reactionary to these, to the words, as you were pointing out, the language that someone's using, if someone is regurgitating something they heard on the news, doesn't matter what news station, if you've aligned with a certain ideology and you've picked your camp at this point, you're pretty much programmed to the level that you're going to react. You're going to dismiss anything and everything that's coming from the other side. There are very, very dark, manipulative forces that are playing, and I've said this on the blog, and I think it's come through the messages, that are playing both sides. This is very deliberate, so that because they know that if one has emotional blocks, if you're not actually feeling, you're going to, the trauma that you carry, the debris that is unconscious within our bodies and our emotional being, can be specifically targeted to get you reactionary, angry, hateful, violent. All of these things can be easily triggered in us if it's unconscious stuff. So when we're played back and forth in this way, if we haven't done our emotional work, we're going to, let's say, play into the hands of those who actually laugh at how easy this is to control and to manipulate. So the reason why we need to be conscious of what we feel, and to do the work, to do the conscious work around our emotions, is because once that is transmuted, you are more clear and you can start to feel the data that comes through these higher frequency levels. Now, why can I hear it and feel it, and someone like you can hear it and feel it? Because I've been essentially trained my whole life through these ET experiences, and constantly having to die and be reborn again, to face my fears, rise above it. Then worldview is smashed, and okay, then who am I? You have to keep asking yourself, who am I? What am I? What do I love? Why am I here? Right? So each time that gets wrecked, which it's gonna get wrecked for a lot of people, if it hasn't already for you, if your lives haven't, the way, just with the pandemic, our lives are not the same and never will be, right? But then we have our own individual stories and events in our own individual lives. But everything that we experience is a potential avenue, and to be more present and to be more conscious and aware, so that we're not just glued to the darkness, which attracts other darkness, so that when we can bring more light into our being, we can be of great service in this arena. And that's why there are a lot of people here who have been very confused about why they've had the kinds of unusual lives they've had, where they've had to essentially have these strange experiences, or maybe just, terrible accident or a terrible illness, where you're constantly challenged to keep showing up and keep living and keep, what is at the core, like it forces you inside so that you can have this conversation with yourself. And I always say with a capital S. This inner wisdom, this core identity is what informs us. And this is what all the messages have been about, is here's how you can prepare for this coming time with your consciousness, so that you can be more available and that you can know what to do when you need to do it, and with little to no interference from your own wounding and trauma, and that causes anger, rage, defensiveness. If these things erupt within us, the thing to do is to go, oh wait, gosh, I'm triggered. Why am I being triggered? Because this greater optimal state of consciousness, to be able to know what you need to know when you need to know it, does not get triggered. You might feel discomfort. You might feel a little anxiety. It's not to say that you're just like walking around all, I am a pure and open being. It isn't like that at all. It's very moment by moment of consciousness. What am I feeling? Why am I reacting? Take it inward rather than sending out the anger and the rage and the defensiveness and the fighting and all of this. This is the wrong direction to go, period. If that's what you're engaged in, then that world that you're engaging with and that darkness has a plan for your consciousness, because you're not using it. You're not valuing it enough to own it and to be it, right? So you were going to say something.
Oh, you just stimulated something that just happened within my mind recently. I was watching some program about the problem with racism in the United States. And I saw a sign that said white only, or white only. And it reminded me of my childhood living here in Southern Colorado, where there was a sign that said dogs and Mexicans not allowed. And I remember asking my grandfather, because we were going to go into this store. We couldn't sit at the food counter because it said dogs and Mexicans not allowed. And I remembered that. So it came up in this last month often in my mind. Why is it that those signs, white only, why does that still have an effect every time I see one? And it brings up an old anger, a childhood anger actually, that wondering why others could sit and have a sundae, a chocolate sundae sitting at the food counter, or a sandwich, and we couldn't. And we always used to say, my mom and dad would always say, well, tell people that you're Spanish, you're not Mexican, you're Spanish. But the truth is that we were all Mexican at one time in the Southern Colorado area, because it was Mexico. and then it was given or sold to some for almost nothing, I think, to the United States government. But that's an example of a traumatic event that happened in my childhood that still has a recurring physical effect on me. Every time I see those signs, I actually get angry that why is it I'm not as good as they are? Or why is it the black people aren't considered as good as the whites? And I never have been able to figure any of that out. And it's still these tapes that keep playing in my head. So as you said earlier about how important it is to clear out all of the trauma so that one can not go to that same spot and then have that take up all your energy, but to clear out the trauma so that you can feel what you're really feeling, mm-hmm. and to know what you're feeling.
Right.
And you've often said that in your messages and in your blogs, to know what you're feeling so you can feel what you know, mm-hmm. and vice versa, so that you can know what you feel. Mm-hmm. And they go hand in hand, but it is easier said than done.
Yeah.
When we see things that immediately take us back to our childhood or back to whatever age I was, teenager, when it was the same thing happening to me in high school and so forth. Just this feeling of worthlessness that was projected out onto, mm-hmm. the Chicano kids, or the Hispano, now people call us Hispanic. There's a lot of things they call us, Latinx, whatever. Human beings that had a little bit different color skin or had a last name that was different than others. So all of that stuff has to be cleared out before one can be in a real, honest, being in the present moment, honestly being in the present moment, so that our minds aren't thinking about all that other stuff. And that's where I feel we have to be right now.
Yes. I would just, if I could alter a little bit what you just said, the way I would say it is, it isn't that we have to clear it all out before, it isn't like some goal-oriented thing. All that's required in any given moment is to bring consciousness to it. So you notice, that ping in your solar plexus when you see that sign. Oh, okay. And if you're driving, or if you're in a space where you can start to dialogue, this is what this non-human intelligence taught me. This was the practice, that you start to dialogue. I'm noticing that I just had a feeling of pain and disgust, and and just try to articulate it the best you can and have it match your voice so that your body and your voice sync. And it's like, yeah, that's it. Disgust. Yeah, that, I'm getting a yes on this. That's what this feeling is. Or anger. Oh, this makes me so angry. And then, so you feel it, and you're just being present with it. And then you can say, I want to understand this. I really want to know what this is and why it affects me to this degree. And so you're zeroing in with your amazing, intellect. And I've even referred to this as the ego, allowing the ego to step into its new position of director. It's like, whoa, bring the ego in, and it's like, whoa, I get to participate in recreating how we do things here, Mm. So it's the ego's on board, and you're like, yeah, you know what? We got to be an investigator now, because this is blocking us. We're not getting anywhere. I'm getting more and more afraid every day. I'm getting more angry, so the more that you can speak what's actual, and feelings are actual, the more that present moment doorway opens. So basically you're engaging your will, and you're saying, I'm here, and I'm going to take charge of this. What's going on here? I want to know. This is the kind of language and use of will and the opening of the heart doorway, the feeling doorway, that gets things moving and changing. So it's not, again, it's not a goal. I got to get rid of everything, or I got to get rid of the ego. Remember that from the 70s and 80s and 90s? It's like, got to get rid of the ego. And I always get a catch when I hear people say that, like, no, we don't need to get, we need that. We still need that right now. So, so all that's required is our attention. Attention is key. And if you'll notice, what social media does and what any kind of media does, it wants your attention. It's vying for your attention. So look over here. Look at this. You should get angry about this. Oh, you should be offended by this, right? No, I'm not offended by it. I'm just looking at it. I'm observing it, and I'm not reacting to it. It's nothing I have to force down or shut down to pretend, to create a new identity to say, I don't react to anything. That you have to be aware of that frequency too. That's part of the ego. And if you know the frequency of the ego, then you can start to go, oh, no, that was ego. You recognize it and go, oh, gotcha. Now we're going to bring it back to this. So you're constantly being the director. Now, one of the things that I wanted to share, because I was feeling it as you were talking, and I want to make sure I get this in before I forget, is that it's important that we recognize that we are empowered to move through these times consciously. And anyone that tells you anything else is just a distraction. We need to be aware, first and foremost, that we have the power to redirect and to change anything in any present moment doorway. Okay. So
I agree.
Our attention on our heart, our bodies, our feelings, our will, is going to start this movement to connect you with all that is love. You're moving, you're expanding, and you're moving in the direction of love when you engage in this way. Doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. That's one of the mistakes that I feel people make when they start on any new path. I want to be perfect at this. Well, wanting to be perfect at something is also a kind of trauma-based feeling. Why do you have to be perfect at something? Turn that inward. Why do I feel like I have to be perfect at this? I want to know why. Where is this in me? And so you're courageously inviting these inconsistencies, these ways that these experiences that got filed away. A lot of times this is when we're younger, but it doesn't have to be. The wounds in our younger years. So when you were a child, with your grandpa at the counter and wondering why you can't have your sundae there, this experience can resonate in a lot of different directions. But this one that I want to point out is you felt that and it hurt, and you asked, perhaps, I can't remember the whole story, but and then it didn't make sense, right? That it was like, what, Grandpa, what, and nobody really can give you something that makes sense, right? It's just that's the way it is, or deal with it, or in any kind of emotional, I'm feeling emotions. No, they're not welcome. No, that means you're weak. But get all these these reactions from the people around you, and you just like, what do I do with this? And then it gets filed or stuffed into, well, you remember when I did the talk in Southern Colorado last year, and I showed on the screen the chasm that starts to grow from all the inconsistencies, all the things that don't make sense here. And we're just supposed to stiff upper lip, kind of bullshit, right? All of that gets stuffed in there. And that's what keeps us from connecting to our own, divinity. That's all the roadblocks. That's all the unconscious stuff. So if we would have been able to, before it got stuffed, if we would have been able to talk it out and be heard and cry, feel your feelings, then we wouldn't be carrying that around still. And that getting triggered every time you see it again. Boom, boom, boom. It's not resolved. So with this practice, you're bringing your attention to it once and for all and saying, wow, that hurts. So it's not that you have to full on process everything, right? You can, if it moves in that direction, it's totally fine. But usually, and especially with these energies and frequencies happening right now, usually it's just bring your attention to it, feel it, say it, articulate it, not in story form, in actual feelings. Keep saying the feelings as they come up, and then pretty soon you'll feel this, and it's gone. And you're more clear. And then next time it happens, you'll note the markers that you had before, those reactionary, the markers for reaction. They're not there so much anymore. You might feel like a little ping, but oh, yeah, I got to do this now, or I'm present with something else now. Not avoiding it or denying it. It just doesn't have the charge, right? Because it doesn't have the blob inside of your body anymore to make it to charge and react, right? So you're clear. Now you can start to hear some of these higher frequency messages that are pouring in for all of us to help guide us, heal us, guide us. And as I wrote in my last blog post, I feel that's why ET contact happened to begin with. I had to go through all this to transcend all the debris I had. And it's an ongoing process. It's never.
I agree. I feel what you said about the ego being important. It is important, no question about it, or we wouldn't have it. And yet, getting out of the head, getting out of the mind, and going into the heart as quickly as possible, what I hear you suggesting that we try to do is to get back to our balance as quickly as possible. And in saying that, what we have to deal with is what just happened. What did we feel? Okay, I felt that, and be honest about what you felt. And then notice each time that something like that comes up, if that's the same energy, the same feeling, it won't be quite as painful the next few times that you have it. And finally, it'll get to the point where you don't feel that ping anymore, that pain. It's interesting that we're in this time right now in this country, dealing with illness and dis-ease and people that we love, friends, family, dying from a dis-ease. Although it's been happening forever in all of our lives, over and over and over, this happens to has a lot of fear involved with it because of the fact that so many people may come down with it in a short period of time, which would overwhelm the hospitals, apparently. That's the real justification for pumping out all of the fear and so forth. I wonder how much of the fear is causing the fear that's being pumped out to us can also be part of the cause of so many people dying, just because when they hear that they're ill and they potentially got some illness, some disease, they choose to check out instead of saying, okay, I'll get through this because I'm strong, and feeling very comfortable with this fact that we have everything within us to overcome illness and disease. It's just simply not allowing fear to come in. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would add too that the way I approach it is I don't fear death. So you're also, when you go through these kinds of life and death experiences where you have to, die repeatedly to your fears, you come to a point where I don't fear death. So I'm not attached one way or the other to whether I get this disease or not. I know what I am and what I'm connected to. It's very clear to me that what we're experiencing here is pretty much, the densest kind of experience that we had to choose from, and we chose to be here at this time. And there's a reason why each and every human is here at this time. What is beyond this, not that we want to end our lives, and stop the physical body's existence to hurry up and get there, because it doesn't work that way. So anybody who might be thinking, well, hell, then I'll just kill myself so I can get there to these, higher frequencies. No, we have to learn, and not learn. What we're doing here is we eventually die and stay alive. Not only stay alive, but become more vibrant and loving and powerful than ever before in physical form. And that's what a lot of the messages have said, that this is where we're actually, a lot of people are going to pass on in the old ways that we would expect by losing the body. And then there are going to be some people who get to experience death and rebirth while keeping their form.
Well, I've been studying the Mayan teachings, as you have, for a long time, and that's the word they use in the 20 glyphs of the Mayan calendar, sacred Cholke calendar. They use the word Kame, and Kame means exactly what you just said. It's being dead and alive, to make the transformation so quickly that you're still in form. Yeah. And that when this happens to some people, they understand that their physical body can leave, but there's no need for it to, if you don't want it to. Mm-hmm. More or less a decision that we have to make at that moment.
And there's not a value judgment with that. We could leave, any one of us could leave by losing the physical body. And it's like, oh, they chose to go that way. Right. They have their reasons. It isn't like, oh, look, they didn't get it, so they lost their body. No, things do not work that way. There's never any value judgment with the choices that we make. But I do want to just add to that suicide thing, that if anybody's thinking that they want to commit suicide to avoid this pain, you'll get more chances and with more obstacles. If you choose to go out that way, it'll be like, oh, sorry, let's try again, and we get cycled back through over and over and over until we get who we are and that we have the power to transcend this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's ancient civilizations that have been passing this kind of information on through the centuries.
Yeah.
Many of the ancient civilizations have the same philosophy about death and dying, in that it's not something to fear. In fact, it's something to rejoice about. And there's also the same ancient civilizations that talk about it can happen in a flash, and you can be present in the present moment and experience what it might feel like to leave the physical form and then still be in form. Mm-hmm. And some of the great masters were able to do that, what they would call going through the portal, the cosmic portal, and returning, and show you that there is no death in essence.
Yeah.
You brought up something about, we're talking about the issues of not racism per se, but we're talking about the problems that can come up whenever there is judgment or prejudice. And the judgment in this case would be to keep people of color from voting, or to keep people of color from entering into a store and so forth. But for a lot of reasons, women in general, just being a woman, has been also one of those same issues, where there's been a lifelong thing that I've noticed in my entire life, the prejudice against women. And I feel, again, it's about fear. It's the fear of women that causes the same issue, right? It's the fear of people of color that causes all of these signs to be put up and restrictions and so forth, and racism, what we call racism. But it also has affected women, and every woman I know has been affected by it also.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I just want to respond by saying that's very accurate according to, the messages and downloads I've received about the feminine, and that, what we are witnessing is a resurgence of what we like to call, now these are just words, but the divine feminine or the divine mother. And the darker skinned peoples have a very, very deep, ancient, special connection to the mother in this way. Not that white folks don't. It's just that it's important for people of color, for everybody to know that this power of the mother and of the feminine within each and every one of us, no matter the color of our skin and no matter our gender, however we choose to identify, this power is at the core of our being. And this is the layer. This is the reason, the deeper reason to do this shadow work, is what a lot of people call it. I don't like names and labels, but it's just really, it's the present moment work with our feelings that was given to me from this intelligence and that I applied. And it is what led me eventually to, the full connections that I have had, the restorative, I talk about the Kundalini events. But then people think Kundalini is the end. It's like, no, these are just events that initiate the rest of your possibilities for connection and awakening to the power that you are. But what initiates the Kundalini, or Koyopa, as the Mayan language calls it, is once we get this feminine energy rising and active, then it weds back together with the masculine energy. And this wedding is what produces the divine child, the divine being, and we are reborn. And I've spoken of this before. This is what is possible for all of us. It's not about color. It's about each and every one of us, no matter our horrible collective and individual wounds, we acknowledge all of that. But the important thing now is to withdraw, don't get engaged in flinging your shadow out into the world and causing violence and pain and disruption without, if if you're doing those things out of a wounded space, it will not solve anything, anytime. If you return to the power that you are, this wedded power that you are, or you're at least working on it and becoming more conscious of it, you are a force in this world that nobody can fucking touch. That's what I want to get across to people.
I agree.
You cannot be touched. You cannot be tricked. You are in your power. You are back together again, the way you were designed to be.
That's so important that you say that, because it's something that I've talked about. You've talked about for years, about taking our power back and remembering who we are. And many of us talk about it. It's easier to talk about than it is to do, especially when we're dealing with how to pay the rent, how to buy food, how to cover car insurance, all of these financial issues that come up that, again, take our power away, so to speak, and make us feel worthless when we don't have that money, and the money isn't there. But so what we have to do is realize that money isn't our power. We have a power within us. And that's what I was saying earlier about learning to feel, learning to use our feeling energy, our heart energy, because that is where we really have to go now in order to regain our power, is to feel what we've been feeling and be honest about it, and then say, I want my power back. Yes. I want to take it back. Yeah. And I'm ready to have it back. Yeah. And that's important.
Yeah, you articulate things so well. I so appreciate that about you. Here's the difference. It's like in the mental realm where we're manipulated and controlled. It's like, oh shit, I don't have enough money in my account, and I have to make my car payment, or I have to, pay the car insurance bill. Oh shit, anxiety, and it starts triggering things in the body that you've stored from the past. Oh, remember last time? So everything starts resonating with the pain and the trauma. The moment that you say, oh, okay, I want to heal this. I'm so confused right now. I have no idea how this is going to work. But I'm here and I'm feeling panic. How is it that I'm going to make this payment? How is it that I'm going to satisfy this debt? How am I going, and so you're going here, and then you're dropping to the body where your power is. You drop to your body and your feelings. This is where you start to regain a sense of presence so that you can begin to hear the things you need to hear to act on the issue, And it might be something that you never would have thought of, right? Because we're so busy with anxiety and all the triggering going on and the arguing, with the spouse or the kids or whatever, then we're not available in our heart and in our solar plexus, in our lower belly, the core. This is where our answers are. So you're not saying, I'm going to ignore this. You're saying, I'm going to stand in my power, even though, I'm going to tell the truth and say, I don't know anything. I don't know how this works. And so, see, that's a surrender point, right? I don't know. With all this, I don't know. But I'm willing to explore a different way of knowing, a different way of receiving inspiration and data, right? So that's why the dialogue is so important to catch yourself, and sometimes, and we got to forgive ourselves too. Sometimes we just plain forget. Like, you're in anxiety for half a day, and then you go, oh, I'm supposed to what? And then that's the notice the weak will in the solar plexus. Notice when you start to go, wait, I think that strange lady on YouTube said I should, what? And then tune into your solar plexus and notice how weak it is and how it's like, wait, I'm supposed to say I'm here and I'm feeling, so you're resisting, you're reluctant, but at least you're starting to engage your will. That's how we can be so controlled and manipulated, because we've given our power, our will over to the authorities, right? That are supposed to be smarter than us and know more than us. And in some cases, there are brilliant people out there. I'm not saying there aren't brilliant people out there, but the intellect is not going to save us. It is the engagement of our will, knowing what we feel, knowing how we feel, taking responsibility for what we feel in any given moment, and starting to open up the doorways of perception so that we can perceive more guidance in, okay, the old world's done. How do we do this? You've got to be available to begin.
When you say the old world's done, I feel like a lot of us are watching this, all of the things that are happening around us. Many of us are making that kind of a statement, that we're watching the disintegration of the American society. But it's not just American, it's actually happening in many other places in the world. It's happening in, it doesn't matter, we know the names of the countries. What is happening is that human beings are starting to take back their power, and they are standing in up. They're standing up and they're saying, this isn't right.
Yes.
And so that those kinds of statements are giving their power back. They're taking their power back by even standing up and saying what they're feeling.
Yes.
And so it's nice to see on a larger scale. And one recognizes that we're no longer alone. We used to feel like we were alone with these feelings. Now that we're recognizing that, not only did we recognize for the last 70 years of our life and my life that racism exists and it's something that is out there.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to talk about it. Yes, not only does it exist, it's still here with us and it hasn't really changed much.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? How do we get to the next, to that so-called new America, the new world, however you want to word it?
Yeah. First of all, no matter what is going on around you, the key is to go within and to find that space again, that empowered space where you get your information. So as much as, I applaud people who, who step up, stand up for themselves, and they say no to this kind of, infringement upon rights. It's also important to be going within, because activism, it's more powerful when you're aligned with your inner self. Inner and outer is in alignment. Again, I'm back to, you cannot, you have so much power. It's like we become superheroes when we align our inner and outer. So yes, it's good to stand up and say no, but at a certain point, you're not going to be able to, win in a battle with federal forces that have a lot of weapons at their disposal. So it's like, I know it's confusing. We got to do something. We got to do something. Well, who's doing something? Who are you? What are you connected to? Are you just connected to a cultural identity? Or are you connected to a divine identity? Where's your power? Where's your source? If your source is just from ideology, then that's not a very strong foundation, because a lot of what we have learned and grown up with, it's all wrong and upside down. So what are you standing on? How strong is that platform? Yeah, human rights. Absolutely. But what about divine rights and divine sovereignty? When we can reconnect back to that core and say, I speak from this space. I've got the backing of the universe behind me. I feel it, I own it, I am that. And then you bring that. And I'll tell you what, you're already in another frequency or dimension to where you can't even be touched by this kind of darkness. So you're not even there to engage, or you wouldn't even fight, because you're healed. Your perceptions are healed. You are not triggered by the things that, God, we get so offended, it's so many little stupid things, and those things aren't important. Reevaluate who you are and what you're standing upon.
So taking back your universal power, taking back your creator given gifts that are within you, that we're created to be perfect beings, and we are perfect beings. It's just that we keep forgetting that we are, or we're told that we're not, and we accept that as a possibility.
Right.
When we take back our universal power and say, I am a universal citizen, I belong here, I am here, I choose love, making those kinds of positive statements is the way back. It's the third dimension, the three-dimensional world, is the issue. So as long as we continue to want to be a part of the 3D realm,
engage with it, fight with it, yes,
then that continues to be our world.
Right.
The minute we choose to be universal,
yes,
in our citizenship,
yeah,
and in our humanitarian abilities, that's us being a part of the universe,
right,
then everything shifts.
Yeah.
So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is, let the world do what the ones in the world want to do. Let them do what they need to do. Those of us who take our power back are using a whole nother process, another way of feeling, another way of thinking, another way of being, where we are universal in our process. So we're no longer just Republican or Democrat or whatever political party.
We're changing, expanding our concept.
There you go. Yeah. We're expanded. Yeah.
And once we expand our consciousness, then we're no longer trapped by the context in which they absolutely have to have in order to manipulate us. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm not saying, again, I want to go back to the activism. If you're doing your work and you're aware of how you get triggered and angry, and you're processing this and you're engaged with it, and you feel an inspiration to go take a sign and stand in front of this, corporation or that store or whatever, or Washington, then by all means do it. But to remain in the mental realm and have relationships only with thinking, thought, ideologies, and then basing your actions on that, you are not all together. In fact, you're not all here. So who's engaging? Who's being an activist? Is it somebody who really needs to prove to mom and dad that I'm somebody? You told me I was a nobody, so I'm here. I'm an activist, right? You see how that's coming from the trauma? It's coming from defensiveness rather than, boom, I'm locked into this energetic frequency of love. And see, I want to emphasize this. Make no mistake, this is love. And we have lost this. We have lost soul and we have lost love, to the point where the definition of love, I always make a joke about this, it has something to do with Valentine's Day. Or we are told it's weak. Love is the force of the universe. And if we harness that, if we make ourselves available for that, and we allow it through, we transform this whole thing. And everybody gets to make their choices. So if you feel like this is la la land, and what I speak about is fantasy, Pollyanna, whatever, that's okay. You must go do and be what you feel strongly about. But are those strong feelings based on wounds and shadow trauma? Or are those strong feelings the force of the universe coming through you to share and to be of service here?
Yeah.
I believe that everybody at their core has this love, has the mother, the divine mother, waiting to be unleashed, waiting for her to be included in our consciousness and all of our activities, all of our creations.
You know that to be true.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting to talk with you about these issues, and I know we've already talked for quite a while, and I don't know how much longer we really can.
Yeah, we should probably if we're going to post this. This was an experiment.
I just wanted to cover one quick other thing, and that's
okay.
Remembering who we are is critical at this time to healing not only our own ourselves, but those around us, and letting them heal also along with us, because it is the ones who are balanced, the ones who are healed, the ones who are choosing love, are the ones that are going to create the new America, the new world, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And from that universal love, that force, that energy, the powerful energy force of love being used to work within each of us and out of us, we will create a place where people will feel loved and appreciated and accepted, rather than segregated and prejudiced against and judged and so forth.
Right.
So there's a lot of things we have to change in ourselves first, and then in our world, in the world that we are creating out of ourselves, before we can actually see it manifest in the so-called 3D world.
It's all about perception. Mm-hmm.
And so first step to doing that, as you said, was first healing the trauma that we've got, that keeps us from remembering who we are, that keeps us from choosing love. And the second step is to really connect with that part of ourselves within, so that we can be accurate in how we feel, heal all of the trauma, and be alive and well and healthy, a healthy being,
present
and present.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say the third thing is that we want to work on, so we can get into that balance?
Oh, I'm not good with lists. What I feel priority.
Three.
There's three?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the third one, Eduardo?
I feel like it's choosing joy, choosing to enjoy this life.
Yeah.
And being a person who sings and dances and chooses joy again.
Yes.
Because it is out of that joy, out of that love, out of that creative energy that flows through us, mm-hmm. from this excitement that we can have within ourselves, mm-hmm. that we can actually create that same kind of joy in our new world.
Excellent. That's if you want to watch the dark forces be derailed, start dancing in the streets. and truly being joyful and spreading this joy, not from a fake place, but from that grounded, anchored divinity. That would just like, you talk about a bomb for the dark manipulative forces. It's like, that is the best bomb you can create in these times.
You know,
Yeah.
That's my energy is excited now, because I can sense that we're onto something, because it's accepting your universal citizenship. Yeah. It's choosing the love as the source of energy that we use in our lives, in every aspect of our lives.
That's our fuel. That's our power. Yep.
And creating joy from that love, first within ourselves, and then allowing that to spread out, and choose music and singing and dancing and loving one another and being kind to one another and sharing what we have with our brothers and sisters. To me, that's where we have to go.
That's what we need to let through and allow to happen. We've been told that all of this is, that's, that's ridiculous. That's weak. And we got to be strong, and we got to, take on this identity that is not us, at our core. Every single one of us, no matter the gender, no matter the color of your skin, we're all the same in this divine core. And we all have these unique, amazing gifts that are just waiting to erupt, to come through and to share and to transform this world. That's what people like use the word ascension. It's not really so much ascension. We're not leaving and going away. We're embodying the rest of our being. But first we have to clear the way. We can't pretend to do this. This is something that we have to engage with consciously. This is where we come in. It's like, okay, I'm going to be a warrior now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to engage with it. And so, yes, joy and a sense of empowerment. So engage with that will and say, I'm here, and I know that I am empowered to do this. This is something that I can do. I'm in charge. Because so many people feel so helpless and out of control. It's because your will is not, if you check in with it, it's like, wait, how hard is it to even say, answer the question, what are you feeling right now?
Yeah.
What do you want? Who are you?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for again, I just love how it's like, I feel like I'm like water, that this data, when it starts to flow and then the messages and stuff, it's so watery and it wants to pour into something. And so you provide this, pottery for it to pour into, and you go back and you say, okay, so here's what we covered. Boom, boom, boom. It's like, oh, I love that, because that's not the way I work.
Yeah.
So I appreciate those skills.
I appreciate you, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk with me today. And I love you. I love this planet, and I love the beings on the planet, and I feel like I'm here, and I choose love. And thank you so much for sharing your love with me.
Thank you. I love you too. And I love that we're both here and that we have shared so many years together on this planet, and that no matter where I am and you are, we're still engaged, and we're doing this thing,
Yes.
That we couldn't always explain. But now it's like, wow, everything that the messages said, and everything that we talked about, and all of our experiences, and, going to Guatemala and walking the fire paths, you the water and the fire, me the fire, and all of these experiences that, me saying, I'm going to go to the top I'm going to climb to the top of the pyramid, and I'm just going to, I'm not going to become a Mayan priest like I'm supposed to. I'm just going to say, okay, that old world is done. I know it's going to go because I've seen it so many times. I'm here. Show me. Engage with me and show me how I can help. And the rest is very challenging life, but at the same time, amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, the Jaguar woman just growled out in the distance.
Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said.
Okay. Well, let's do this again sometime. Love this.
Okay. You're on. I accept your offer.
Okay.